The story begins with a man who quit his job and moved to a rare lake in the Bazir Mountains. He wanted to spend the rest of his life there. At the behest of local villagers, he bought a small house on the lake for 8,000 wen. Although the place wasn't very spacious, he was alone there. Behind the house was just a snowy hill. Before leaving, the villagers left a hunting gun behind, telling him it wasn't safe to live alone. However, Teddy was reluctant. When everyone left, he cried out with joy. From now on, this place was almost his private domain. He could do whatever he wanted without fear of being seen by others. He could finally start living his dream life without fear. After lying comfortably on the snow, he returned to his wooden house and thought, "This is where I'll live my life." Although the house was a bit cramped, it wasn't a big deal for a single man. He fell asleep on his bed, and when he woke, it was midnight. The temperature outside had dropped significantly. His food box had frozen solid in the cold. No matter how hard he tried, it wouldn't open. Finally, he had no choice but to eat 2 packets of tomato sauce for dinner. The relief from the cold made him very thirsty. He opened the water container and found nothing inside. Forced to retrieve a block of ice, he put it in the container and let it melt. After drinking the sweet, cold water, he crawled into his sleeping bag to sleep until morning, but he had never lived in temperatures below 40 degrees Celsius. He was practically frozen to death by midnight like a novice. Then he remembered to put wood in the stove. He quickly threw some in. Slowly, the room returned to normal. The next morning, Teddy stood alone by the lake for a long time. It was his first experience of true peace, away from the hustle and bustle in over 30 years. He then moved all his belongings into the house and did some minor repairs. He removed the unnecessary curtains and arranged the books he had brought with him on the shelves. The old house was transformed in an instant. Snow had been falling outside the house the night before. The next day, he relaxed until he woke up. He made himself a barbecue to fill his stomach. He then drank a cup of wine. After that, he picked up his hunting rifle and went for a walk in his backyard. He realized that life was no longer in his control, and this feeling made him completely free. That night, Teddy was lying in bed when a strange sound came from outside. He slowly looked out and discovered that the sound was coming from the lake ice cracking. He lay down on the ground and listened attentively to this beautiful music created by nature. The next morning, Teddy took out his tools and dug a hole in the ice so he could comfortably bathe in warm water. But that didn't satisfy him. He immersed himself completely in the icy water, experiencing the joy of ice and fire. But then suddenly a bear appeared before his eyes. Teddy was terrified, but thankfully the bear didn't see him. He turned and slowly walked towards the house. Teddy also quickly hid in the next room, quietly watching the bear's movements from the window. After a while, the bear came out of the wooden house. Teddy pulled himself back from the window. He guessed that perhaps the bear had had enough and was now going back. When he left the wooden house and reached the house, Teddy was completely stunned. The bear had gone, but it had destroyed almost all the food. Only a small amount remained in a basket, which Teddy had eaten from the leftovers the previous night. Now he had no food left, so the next day he had to go hunting on the hill behind his house. Luckily, he spotted a deer shortly after, but he had never fired a gun before. He kept aiming for a long time, but in the end, the shot missed. The deer ran away. Teddy immediately ran after it, but he didn't pay attention to his footing and accidentally stepped into a trap. Thankfully, his boots were of good quality, so he only hit his foot hard, preventing any serious injury. The next morning, Teddy put on his boots and decided to go to the other side of the lake. His plan was to buy some essential supplies. He spotted a small village. He bought the supplies there, but had to stay there for the night. When he asked the villagers about the trap, they told him that a killer had once hidden in that forest. It's possible that the trap was left by that man, but that was 10 years ago. After listening to the villagers, Teddy lay in bed that night and began to think deeply. There's no place where there are only animals. Killers can hide anywhere. But when he woke the next morning, the weather had completely changed. Before leaving, the villagers warned him that according to their experience, heavy snowfall was expected in the next 2 days. As expected, a heavy snowfall and storm began that very night. Teddy hid in his house. The temperature was so low that he had to sleep by the stove to stay warm. But the next morning when he went to put in the wood, he discovered that all the wood in the room was gone. He was forced to go out and get some more. He hadn't expected the blizzard outside to freeze his eyes. He tried to find his way back, groping with his bare hands. But even after walking for a long time in the blizzard, he couldn't find his wooden house. Frustrated, he looked up at the sky and cried out loudly. But the blizzard was the only answer to his cries. Gradually, his strength began to wane, and he fell unconscious to the ground. After a while, the storm subsided. Suddenly, a shadow approached him and picked him up, carrying him towards the wooden house. When Teddy opened his eyes, he saw a fire burning in the stove, and the wood was kept nearby. Steam rose from the hot water in the bucket. Sadly, he looked around, but there was no one in sight. Teddy felt like meeting the stranger, so he stood outside the house and began practicing shooting. It wasn't long before a strange man appeared nearby. The man said, "You're just wasting bullets." Teddy replied, "You're new to shooting." Then the man offered to teach him how to shoot, but on one condition: "You have to give me some bullets in return." Teddy listened and immediately agreed. With the man's help, Teddy quickly learned to shoot. He then gave him the bullets. But just as he was about to say something, the man sternly warned him not to mention him to anyone. Then he left without a backward glance. That night, Teddy lay in bed, unable to sleep. He couldn't understand how the man had survived for over 10 years in such a dangerous environment. The next day, he set off for the mountain. Surprisingly, he found the man again. He sternly asked Teddy, "Why are you looking for me?" Teddy replied, "I know who you are. I'm Teddy. I'm a hunter. I'm the man you've been looking for. You can trust me. My name is Teddy." Hearing his honesty, the man's suspicions subsided a bit and Teddy had a new friend. Together, they went hunting in the woods. When they spotted a deer, the man confidently aimed his gun and shot it down with a single shot. They dragged the deer to Teddy's lakeside home. Then they began an outdoor barbecue. Teddy offered the man a glass of wine. He felt a little uneasy after drinking wine after so many years. Then he asked Teddy, "Why have you come to such a remote area?" Teddy said, "I was completely tired of the darkness of my old life. That's why I came here and left everything behind." Quote. He explained to Teddy that this place was unsuitable for human habitation. He then left. Teddy never saw him again the next day, until one day while he was chopping wood at the doorstep, a helicopter suddenly flew over his house and headed for the mountains. Teddy immediately knew they were there to capture the man. He ran into the forest, screaming loudly as he ran. Soon he heard the man's voice and found him. He asked in panic, "Are you injured?" The man replied calmly, "No, it was just some rich people who had come to hunt bears in the mountains." Then he showed him the bloodstains on the ground. He told Teddy he would take him to find the injured bear. If he was lucky, they would find something light to eat that night. But as they approached the mountaintop, the sky grew darker. The man guessed that a severe storm was coming soon. He said to Teddy, "We should hurry back." But they both tried their best, but still couldn't escape the storm. They couldn't see anything ahead. But then, shortly after, the man found a cave. Together, they broke the ice and went inside. Once inside, the man sealed the cave with snow to protect them from the blizzard. But Teddy's whole body was trembling. He was on the verge of fainting. The man warned him, "Don't sleep. If you do, you won't survive." To keep Teddy awake, the man told him a story from his past for the first time. This happened 12 years ago. One day, he met his old army officer. They had met after many years, so they had a lot to talk about. After a while, the officer started boasting about his life. He told him that he now lives in a big house, drives expensive cars, and has a beautiful wife. His children are so smart, they attend a top school. While the man's life had been completely ruined, he was deeply in debt, and sometimes even his family lacked love and warmth. Jealous and angry, he began cursing the officer. In a fit of rage, he picked up a knife lying on the table and stabbed the officer to death. After this incident, he fled and hid in these mountains, living here for the past 12 years. When the man told Teddy this story, he simply said, "You saved my life. It doesn't matter who you were." The man raises his head and looks at Teddy sitting in front of him. After a while, the snowfall completely stops and they both emerge safely. The man then takes him to his house. As they enter the house, they see several marks on the walls. The man had made them to count the years. 3 years from now, a total of 15 years will pass. After that, he can return to his family. He takes out photographs of his children and asks Teddy, "Do you have children?" He shakes his head and says, "No, I don't need this one." He was tired of the world's shackles, so he left everything and came here in search of freedom. He couldn't understand the difference between seeking such freedom and a life of running away and hiding. After this, Teddy learned to live without fear. He would sometimes visit the man. They would sit together for hours, fishing, talking, and spending time. Then suddenly, Teddy lit a red flare because it was his birthday and he was celebrating for himself. But he had no idea that the red flare would attract the attention of the villagers across the lake. The man was shocked to see such a danger after years of hiding. He immediately ran out and hid behind a wooden house. Hearing the door close, Teddy sensed something was wrong. He quickly picked up the wine glass from the table and hid it. He also hid the man's bed. The villagers came inside but found nothing. They had recognized the signal, but Teddy showed no concern. One villager said that spring was coming, and with the melting of the snow, many unknown dangers would come. "You shouldn't stay here alone," he said. "I have nowhere to go. I'll stay here. The villagers didn't say much and left after a while. Teddy didn't dare invite the man inside, but he listened to Teddy and the villagers' conversation. Before leaving, he said to Teddy, "This place has been a cage for me for 12 years. I don't want you to get trapped in the same trap." The weather gradually warmed. The man hadn't been seen for several days. Teddy went looking for him. Once there, he found that the strong man who had fought for life had fallen ill, but he didn't tell Teddy anything about his illness. He simply smiled and said, "If I don't get well this time, throw my body in the lake." Teddy immediately interrupted him, saying, "You haven't met your family yet, so don't talk such ominous things." The man's health was deteriorating. Teddy explained that they should go together to the clinic to see a doctor, but the man flatly refused. He simply told Teddy, "This place isn't fit for you." But the next day, the man suddenly changed his mind. He told Teddy to go to town and get some medicine for him. He also gave him a letter and said, "Go and post this there." Teddy agreed without asking anything. As he was leaving, the man called out to him, "Teddy!" He replied, "Alex." They both called each other's names loudly, as if someone had called their names after a long time. Walking on the ice was now impossible, so Teddy took a boat and traveled to a windmill in the village. After several days, he reached town. First, he bought medicine for him from the clinic. Then he went to the post office. He couldn't read the letter himself, so he asked the post office clerk what it said. He was stunned by the answer. "You've passed this test. You're halfway there. Be strong. Move on. Don't be afraid. You're free now." This letter was for none other than Teddy. The man sent him away without a word. Teddy panicked. He trekked back through the night without stopping, but by the time he reached the lake, it was too late. The man had fallen asleep forever. Within a few days, all the ice on the lake had melted. Daddy took the man's body to the lake in a small boat. He sat there for a long time and then carried out the man's last wish, immerse his body in the lake. Returning home, Teddy shaved his years-old beard, gathered all the things in his wooden house, and resolved to obey the man. He would return to the life he had been running from, but this time, not with fear, but with courage. This is where the story ends. If you enjoyed the story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more heartwarming stories like this one. See you in the next video.